All right. So at first, I'd like to acknowledge that we're in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. And the first item is the approval of the agenda. So look for a motion to do so. For Councilor Bertels, Councilor Ernst, seconded. Any additions or to the agenda? Like, okay. Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Next is a draft motion of the minutes for the May 9th council meeting. Look for a motion for that. By Councilor Sanford, seconded by Councilor Ernst. Any errors or omissions to note? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. First item on the agenda under public hearings is our RCMP quarterly report.
Forgot about turning on the mic. Corporal Tracy Johnston, for those of you that don't know me, I am the community liaison for Lunenburg and for the town of Mahone Bay as well. This quarterly report is actually from January to March. We were kind of behind back in January, so we're working at getting back up to speed so that you guys are up to speed on what is happening in town and around the county as well. In terms of our district staffing, I'll just get you to go on to the next slide for me. Not much has changed. We have the same standard district staffing as you've seen over the last several months, several years. We have our offices in Chester, Lunenburg, and Cookeville that serve the entire district, and you as the town of Lunenburg get the benefit of each and every member that is associated to the entire district. We also have our South Shore Traffic Services team that works out of Chester, and they work throughout the county here as well. There's kind of a breakdown there as to what sort of services we have here in the district: patrol cars, our SUVs. You'll start to see our boat out in the water. You'll hopefully start to see some of our bicycles around town. We have some retired members that have come up for the summer that would love to do some bike patrols around town. So hopefully you'll see some of that around town as well, and our side-by-side as well. From January to March of this year, the district, so all of Lunenburg, saw 2,166 calls for service, and that's a combination of the Controlled Drugs and Substance Act, Criminal Code, and any sort of provincial act investigations throughout the county. I've given you a breakdown of each one of those, or each type of call that we have seen, or the ones that kind of are more prominent. We're still seeing mental health calls being very high throughout the district. That's attributed to many things, and typically those calls for service end quite smoothly. We've been quite, it's worked in our favor in the last little bit that things have gone well for us. As for the town of Lunenburg itself, over that 3-month stretch, we saw 130 calls for service within the town. Of those calls for service, we saw a fair amount of traffic tickets written within the town, 21 summary offense tickets and 3 traffic warnings. Parking offenses, which typically is something that is an issue here in the town, was quite low, but that's over the winter months, and we are expecting that to increase in the next little bit and are trying to be proactive in that area. In terms of the main calls for service in the town of Lunenburg, there were very few, so that's a good sign for us. There were a couple of thefts from the Nova Scotia Liquor Commission here in town. And we saw 2 different groups of people that were actually arrested and have been charged for those offenses. In one case, it was a male and female that were working together, and they did breaks or thefts. I should say not breaks. They did thefts throughout the entire district, and our street crime team worked with some of the members, and we were able to get several charges for those individuals. One thing that I wanted to bring up in council here today was during the month of March 2023, we were alerted to some comments that were made via social media platform in regards to the Blockhouse Hill development project. There were several concerned citizens and members of council in regards to those comments. The comments were extremely inappropriate in nature and could be perceived as a threat, but they didn't meet the threshold to actually lay a charge. The individuals that were responsible for those statements were spoken with by us, and the posts were removed from what we understand from the social media platform. The vast majority of the issues surrounding that, it's very heated, it's very emotional. We understand that. But when we spoke with our Crown prosecutor about that, they weren't direct enough in nature to actually get them to the court system. So we're hoping that just our conversations with those individuals will kind of lessen the social media chatter in terms of threatening behavior or threatening comments to individuals that are involved in that situation. In terms of our district as a whole, we've still got Staff Sergeant Whalen as our district commander out of Cookville. He is kind of heading the charge for all of us, and we are full complement now for our non-commissioned officers, which is really good. We have 2 sergeants for the district. We have 5 corporals, 2 corporals that just came in. They're newly promoted to the district, but they both are coming with a very vast background in policing in terms of major crime, as well as some drug work as well. They are working both out of the Chester office, and we're very pleased to have them joining our team because they do bring a wealth of knowledge for us. I don't need to introduce myself again, but I'm in there as well. We've got our CISNS, which is our criminal intelligence section of Nova Scotia, working with Gord Giffen and a Bridgewater police member. They work out of the Bridgewater office, but they are part of our team as well. Our street crime team, who is led by Corporal McAlpine and Constable Aaron Bishop, have recently moved their physical office from Cookville Detachment over to Bridgewater Police, and they're working as part of an integrated team throughout Lunenburg County, but also over in Kings County as well, because as you guys are probably well aware, drug trafficking in particular does not stay in one area. It moves quite frequently. So having the benefit of them working with Kentville Police and with the New Minas Street Crime Team benefits our area as well, because we can share all that intelligence and hopefully lead to some bigger charges for some of these individuals. Constable Paul McCallion is still working out of the Cookville office as part of our GIS team. And we have our Corporal Scott McLeod, who is Police Dog Services, working out of Chester. And again, he's kind of a provincial resource, so he moves throughout. But if he's not working, then we do have another police dog service that we can always call in to help us out. If you're looking at our staffing throughout the entire district, right now we're looking at about 5 members that are off long-term ODS or off-duty sick. That's anyone that's over 30 days. We do have some that one individual that is recently retired. She had 25 years service, and she decided just to hang up the hooks for now and move on. But we are hopeful that we've got a couple of vacancies that are going to be filled this summer. The paperwork has been forwarded out, and we're just waiting for the division to bring them in. But we would expect by the end of September, those positions will be filled. Currently, our school resource officer and our community policing officer have been brought back onto the watch. So they're actually taking calls for service out in the county. But anything community policing or schools, we still have 2 of us, myself and Constable Leah Beaton, that are looking after things on that side of the house. And Constable Sonia Upshaw is still working part-time with community policing. So she has been taking on that role part-time. Any of your events that are coming up for the summer, you can contact either myself or Constable Upshaw, and we'll make sure that we get somebody there to help out. But we need to have a little bit of notice. Recently, there was an event here in town that we were not able to attend, unfortunately. But we had very little notice to get there. So it makes it a little bit more challenging for us to get the bodies in place for those types of events. If we look at, I'm going to guess street crime, South Shore street crime. I talked a little bit already about the two members that are involved there and how we work jointly with BPS, and now even further, we've moved over to work with Kings County and Kentville Police as well. Just some success stories over the last little bit with the street crime team. We had a search warrant that was executed, and 2 males and a female currently facing possession for the purpose of trafficking with over $1,000 worth of cocaine, drug paraphernalia, and stolen property that were seized. We had another search warrant that was executed on a residence where, again, cocaine, methadone, mushrooms, ketamine, and hydromorphone were seized. A male is facing 5 charges of possession for the purpose of trafficking and some weapons offenses there as well. And we recently had a number of break and enters into businesses within Lunenburg County. And as a result of that investigation, a search warrant was executed on a residence, and a large quantity of stolen property was retrieved. And there's a male facing some charges there as well. And with the stolen property, there was also some drug offense charges that came out of that investigation. If you kind of look at the stats for the quarter, we had 2 criminal code search warrants executed, 7 other criminal code judicial authorizations obtained. So that might have been for cell phone records or something along those lines. Banking information, that's typically what those types of warrants are for. We had 5 targeted offenders searched, arrested, and charged for drug trafficking, $9,000 of property seized or recovered, $4,900 of drugs seized, and cash as well. So a pretty prosperous quarter in terms of street crime and their team. The last part of our report is with South Shore Traffic Services, just to give you an idea of what their numbers look like. And they're working all of the South Shore, but these numbers in particular pertain only to Lunenburg County. There's 454 summary offense tickets written, 270 written warnings, and 49 checkpoints. So lots of visibility out on the roads with our traffic services members, and we quite often work jointly, especially with the checkpoints with them. And they bring in resources from outside of the county as well. They have members that come over from the other side of the province, as well as Halifax, that kind of come in and add into those checkpoints for us. The next few pages are a breakdown for you guys to see exactly what our numbers look like. We're on the rise, obviously. January, February, March, we're on the increase in terms of the number of occurrences or the number of files in the town of Lunenburg. And I just checked prior to coming tonight, and it's showing that increase as well, which makes sense with the nicer weather, the summer months, more people around town. But we're not seeing an increase in violent crime, which is one of the things that we're looking out for in particular, or offenses related to thefts. A lot of driving complaints and that sort of thing that we're seeing an increase in. And that is your report for the first 3 months of the year. Any questions from anybody? Any comments?
Jenny, and then Susan.
I just wanted to say thank you for your report. As before, we really appreciate how well you're explaining it out to us. I just want to acknowledge that. I also wanted to thank you for acknowledging the parking issue. It is a huge concern in town, and I'm looking forward to seeing some bikes patrolling this year. So thank you.
Thank you. Through the chair to Corporal Johnston, just had a question around I love these charts for starters. It's very clear. And if you're looking at trends and things, I'm really keen to better understand like the drug and alcohol, impaired by drug and alcohol. So when you're looking at that, you can see there's minimal impaired by alcohol, but there's literally 0 impaired by drug. And when I see it year over year, I'm wondering, how do we test for impaired by drug? Like, I'm curious that there's nothing anywhere, right?
We're actually starting to see a little bit of an increase of the impaired by drug because of our training and our ability to detect. Because what it boils down to is when the officer pulls somebody over roadside, It's their ability to articulate and to pick up on the signs that would lead them to believe that it's impaired by drug. And my team, prior to moving over to community policing, we had 3 in one weekend impaired by drug. And the way that works is we get our grounds roadside and then we take them to hospital for a blood test. So that's how that works.
Thank you.
Any further questions? I've one, if you could indulge me just for a moment. Months ago, and it's probably in your report here, but it's not specifically, there was a raid happened over in Centennial Avenue area. And it led to a lot of, speculation throughout the community. So if something like that would happen, is there like an official statement like the RCMP could give to the town to sort of, just cap what, within reasonable, without jeopardizing your case, obviously, but is there something that you could forward to the town for communication purposes?
Yeah, absolutely. We could. Typically, actually, any of those raids, we do put out a communication in regards to what happened in the charges that were laid. I know we've had a couple incidents on Centennial, so I'm not sure which one in particular you're speaking to. But yeah, absolutely, that would be something that we could do for sure.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your report.
Any other questions? I do want to really emphasize, though, we're really pushing our members, especially in the last few months, especially since it started getting nicer, of getting out, being on the road, trying to patrol more throughout the town. You'll quite often see, or I have myself, just driving through, members sitting down in the parking lot. I actually came in for lunch the other day and did a little walk around town. So we're really hoping that we get more members out and are visible within the community. And please don't hesitate to come up and speak to the members, ask questions. I had a lady ask the other day about how to buy a cell phone in the town of Lunenburg. So we can be helpful in lots of ways. That one I was not very helpful with, but we're here to be your police officer. So please approach us with anything that you see that's concerning or even not concerning, just to say hello. It's nice to talk to people. Thank you very much.
Next on the agenda is correspondence. Before we get into that, I should have mentioned earlier that we do have regrets from Councilor Halverson tonight, and Councilor Duggan may be joining us virtually later. Yeah, okay. We're not quite sure what time she'll be available. Okay, there's a item 6.1, Access Awareness Week. There's a draft motion on the floor. Is there anyone willing to move that motion? Moved by Councilor Ernst, seconded by Councilor Bills. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. And that entails raising a flag during Access Awareness Week. The other item is a letter from the Board of Trade requesting participation with the new vending bylaw. Maybe just ask our CEO what would the protocol be for something along that line?
Through the chair to Deputy Mayor Mosher. Of course, the letters there for correspondence is standard practice. And the Board of Trade would certainly be engaged with by the new vending bylaw engagement process. Thank you.
Thank you. Under business arising, we have a draft motion here regarding the film policy. Is there anyone willing to move that motion? Moved by Councillor Sanford. Seconded by Councillor Burles. Is there any staff want to?
Through the chair, Deputy Mayor Mosher. I think I heard somebody say they couldn't hear me before. Thank you for the indulgence. But I'll circle back quickly to the vending bylaw letter we received from the Board of Trade. They will absolutely be engaged in the process of the new vending bylaw. Thank you. As for this next one, will be presented by Hillary Grant in Art's absence. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And for the public record, I'm Hilary Grant. I'm the Senior Planner and Heritage Officer for the town of Lunenburg. Staff is recommending that council move forward with repealing and replacing policy number 92, filming guidelines, with the new film policy as presented. This policy was flagged by staff for updating as part of our overall policy review work. And such a policy can create a film-friendly environment here in Lunenburg. The draft updated policy has many of the elements of the existing policy, but clarifies roles and responsibilities, including for applicants. It includes updated information on film permit applications, insurance requirements, notifications to affected residents, street closures, and special effects. And it condenses into one application form what used to be two. Staff hope a refined policy will help ensure compliance, guide decision makers, make processes more transparent, and streamline internal processes. It takes a tiered approach to permit fees, as we heard in our previous council meeting, ranging from $50 to $200, and daily and half-daily filming fees from $75 to $1,000. Fees vary based on the project's budget. So smaller projects pay less, larger projects pay more. There's also a parking fee of $17.35 a day for production vehicles. All of these fees will be reviewed annually by council. The policy, it should be noted, does not apply to current affairs, newscasts, and videography for weddings, sports teams, or personal videos not for commercial use.
Thank you, Hilary. Any questions for Hilary? Councilor Ernst.
Thank you. And through the chair, I would just like to, I'd like to have some clarification, I guess, on the lower end of the, I think it was written as student filming or so on the $50, $75 range. Just wondering what is involved in that. I'm assuming a production is anything that requires more than one individual, equipment, lighting, sound, etc. Is that what we're thinking? I just ask that because more and more we're seeing a lot of social media filmmakers and so on who they're not going to be making any money on these sort of things, and I certainly don't want to see Lunenburg not get some free publicity in a sense because of a cost involvement. So I just want to clarification on that.
Through the chair, my understanding is that this is for true film productions. So as you were mentioning, with film crews, with equipment, while that can mean smaller productions, for example, student film productions, the policy has been structured to encourage those types of smaller productions by keeping fees to an absolute minimum. It would not apply to, say, a social media creator taking out a phone and quickly recording themselves. Again, it only applies to commercial ventures, so not to things like tourists or wedding videography.
Any further questions? Thank you, Hilary. So we do have the motion on the floor. Any discussion on the motion from council? Okay, call for the question then. All in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. There are no committee minutes, recommendations, or reports under new business. Old Town Lunenburg State of Conservation Report. I believe that's probably in your wheelhouse, Hilary.
Thank you so much. And again, Hilary Grant, Senior Planner and Heritage Officer for the town of Lunenburg. Through the chair, staff is seeking from council an endorsement of the 2023 State of Conservation Report for Old Town Lunenburg World Heritage Sites. Parks Canada requested this report, and it will form the basis of staff's 6-year periodic reporting to Parks Canada. Both this report considered this evening and the periodic report will inform Parks Canada's report to the World Heritage Committee. The periodic reports are submitted every 6 years and are mandatory. There are 4 or 5 World Heritage Sites in Canada that submit State of Conservation reports annually. These are voluntary reports, and this will be the most substantial report the town of Lunenburg has submitted in some time. The report finds that Old Town Lunenburg is the most under-resourced World Heritage Site in Canada. Protecting Old Town Lunenburg on behalf of the global community has fallen disproportionately on the town, its residents, and its businesses versus the provincial or federal government compared to other Canadian World Heritage Sites. Our residents, business owners, and organizations are heroes of Canada's heritage movement and should be celebrated for their dedication and perseverance in conserving Old Town Lunenburg. As context, there are 9 cultural World Heritage Sites in Canada. Of these 9, 2 are owned and operated by the Government of Alberta. Each of the other 9 are at least partly owned and operated by Parks Canada and managed as interpretive sites. Town staff has requested the last 5 years of capital and operating budgets for each of these Parks Canada owned and operated sites, and the Government of Canada has yet to respond. While this has yet to be confirmed, it appears Parks Canada owned and operated National Historic Sites have an annual operating budget of approximately $1 million to $4 million, $1 million being for sites only open for a part of the year. Lunenburg receives no such ongoing support. Lunenburg can apply for funding under Parks Canada's National Cost Sharing Program, where it competes against the country's other heritage sites for 50% matching funding up to $250,000 a year. Only $2 million has been allocated to this fund for 2023-2024. And again, as heard from our CAO, Jamie Doyle, last week on May 16th, the restoration of just the exterior of Town Hall is estimated at $3.8 million, almost double the entire cost sharing program's grant budget for this year. It is frankly incredible that Lunenburg has done so much with so little for so long. In fact, we'll be hearing about some incredible conservation efforts shortly under the next agenda item. And this report is in no way meant to detract from the town or its community's achievements. But despite everyone's best efforts, the state of Old Town Lunenburg World Heritage Site is poor, with its status as North America's best preserved colonial settlement in jeopardy because of the critical condition of the 4 civic blocks. Staff would recommend council approve the report with a few minor edits. Staff noticed the list of provincial heritage properties in Lunenburg needs to be updated to include Solomon House and 80 Pelham Street, an oversight on my part. This report has also been shared with the community groups mentioned in the report, and beyond minor grammatical edits, 2 groups requested more neutral language. The Lunenburg Heritage Society requested that rather than stating that Parks Canada denied funding to conserve Connaught Ruland House in their second application to the cost sharing program, that the report read funding was not approved, and that the report read that repairs are needed in some areas instead of needed desperately. The Society also drafted language to clarify that conservation work will unfold over multiple phases on the Connaught Ruland House rather than just 2. The Lunenburg Academy Foundation requested minor language changes to the second paragraph of the Lunenburg Academy Foundation section under buffer zone to remove reference to individual board members. Staff feel none of these edits impact the overall thesis, analysis, or findings in the report and are happy to accommodate these requests with council's approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Hillary. Very comprehensive job. Well done. Thank you. Any questions of Hillary? Councilor Ernst?
Thank you. Just a statement. I mean, this is the drum I've been beating for years. So I just wanted to thank staff. It's very thorough. It's maybe not the most uplifting, but I think the points are all very valid and true. So I just want to thank staff for putting this together. Thank you.
Any other questions? Council Sanford?
Through the chair. Hillary, it's an amazing report. It really is. It was a pleasure to read. And I appreciate the feedback that you were able to get from those that are involved and value that. I'm wondering, not to get into wordsmithing, but there's just one ask, please, if you could humor me, and you can just take this or leave it. But at the very end, after this amazing report, when we say the town of Lunenburg deserves substantial federal and provincial support, I'm wondering if we can take deserves out of there and put something like requests substantial federal and provincial support. So what it does is it takes the emotion away from all of this wonderful fact that you've presented so thoroughly, and it puts the fact of we're requesting as opposed to we deserve. We do deserve, but we want to ask, right? That's just my comment. Thank you.
Through the chair, thank you so much for the feedback, and I will absolutely make that change before submitting it to Parks Canada. Thank you.
Anyone else? I have one little quick question, and this is more for an education for myself and you know, everyone. I think heritage, everyone has an opinion in heritage, and it's really, I've learned a lot, and it's nice to have experts here at our disposal. So you mentioned in the report, like vernacular, neo vernacular. Can you explain that to us, what, you know, the importance behind that?
Thank you so much for the question. As I mentioned in the report, the Old Town Lunenburg World Heritage Site is recognized for being of outstanding universal value for 3 reasons. It's the best preserved colonial settlement in North America. It is an outstanding marine culture, and because it has a continuing vernacular architecture tradition. Now, many in Lunenburg are very familiar with the rich historic built fabric in Old Town Lunenburg, but fewer may recognize that we are recognized as a continuing vernacular architecture tradition, meaning something that is still present today, something that is living and evolving. In order to demonstrate to UNESCO that that tradition is continuing, that it is alive and well, the new Old Town Lunenburg Heritage Conservation District Plan and Bylaw has been drafted to promote or create an environment to encourage that vernacular tradition to flourish in the present. A new building that could be seen as embodying that continuing tradition, I would deem a neo-vernacular building versus a historic vernacular building.
Thank you. Okay, so we do have a motion here to endorse this report and have it sent to Parks Canada. So someone, Councilor Sanford and Councilor Bertels. Sorry, I think I just beat me to it. Any discussion on the motion? Oh, you went, okay. Raise your hand to vote too, so we can make sure we got you recorded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. And second is the Heritage Recognition Awards. You're on deck again, Hillary.
Thank you so much. Again, on a much brighter note, it is my pleasure to present the nominees for the 2023 Heritage Recognition Awards. Since 2018, the town of Lunenburg has awarded outstanding conservation efforts with Municipal Heritage Recognition Awards. This year's nominees are the owners of 10 Saw Pit Road, 114 York Street, and 37 Tannery Road. 10 Saw Pit Road is nominated for successfully blending in addition and contributing positively to the original structure's design through a contemporary paint scheme highlighting the property's unique architecture. 114 York Street is nominated as a new infill development, dare I say neo-vernacular infill development, that contributes positively to the streetscape with traditional form, materials, and massing. 37 Tannery Road is nominated for preserving the original character of a building, having successfully converted the Angus Walters House into a 2-unit dwelling. These nominations were recommended to council at the Heritage Advisory Committee's May 8th meeting. However, it should be noted that the vote was not unanimous, with Natalie Irving voting against 114 York's nomination on the basis that its corner boards and window moldings are too small, and thus it does not comply with the Old Town Lunenburg Heritage Conservation District Plan and bylaw. And there was a fear that rewarding this project might set a precedent for non-compliance in the future. This building does, however, comply with the standards and guidelines for the conservation of historic places in Canada, and its lack of thick moldings may be the result of COVID-related supply shortages having been built between June 2020 and August 2022. Given the committee's positive recommendation and the challenges we all faced during the pandemic, leniency may be advised in this case. It is council's decision.
Thank you, Hillary. Any questions, Hillary? We do have a motion, draft motion there. Is anyone willing to move? Moved by Councillor Ernst, second by Councillor Bertels. Any discussion on the motion? Councillor Sanford?
I just, Natalie's comments resonate with me, and I'm just wondering, are we in fact opening a door? And at what point do we draw lines? So, you know, do we say at this point that we make an exception here because there was the pandemic, but then when somebody else is approached or questions, where do we start making those decisions? To draw those lines if we're not following the process that was set out. It's a stunning build and it fits really well. But again, I can't help but hear Natalie's comments with regards to, are we beginning a new process whereby each piece kind of, well, you know, we could kind of let this go or we could kind of let that go. I don't know if that's precedent we want to make. Just a thought. I'd be welcome to hear other comments.
Councillor Bertels?
Through the chair, through with Susan, I was at the Heritage meeting, and Natalie had said how she walked up to the house and she put her fingers to measure it. I hope that's not how we're going to go forward, by making sure we can't recognize the people who are, you know, giving back to the town. So as I hear Natalie's complaint or concern, I don't want to be using my fingers to be drawing the line either.
Any further comments? I think, you know, from my perspective, I think the effort is, you know, the effort was put forward to do it as correctly as possible. And so I have no issues with it personally, but we do have a motion on the floor, and if anyone would strongly enough that they would, you know, amend the motion, that's your option. But otherwise, I'll call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? I was told I had to raise my hand too. Okay, motion's carried. Next is Development Office appointment. There is a draft motion prepared. Anyone willing to make that draft motion? Councillor Ernst, second by Councillor Bertels. Is there anything Doyle has to add to that before we?
To the Deputy Minister, I promoted him. Deputy Mayor, I don't have anything to say, but perhaps if Hillary does, she can take the floor. Thank you.
Again, Hillary Grant, Senior Planner and Heritage Officer for the town of Lunenburg, for the record. Staff is recommending appointing our new planner, Lauren Isabel, as a development officer. This is something council is empowered to do under the Municipal Government Act. Development officers oversee the implementation of our land use bylaw and subdivision bylaw. These duties are already part of Lauren's job description, and as such, there's no financial implications to this decision. I would also like to take this opportunity to formally welcome Lauren to the team, and we are absolutely thrilled to have her.
Thank you, Hillary. Any questions of Hillary? Okay, we have the motions moved and seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. More responsibility and less and the same pay. It's kind of call it a day, isn't it? Item 9.4 is provincial funding applications. Are there any reports from staff on that, Jamie?
Through the chair to deputy mayor. I literally almost said it again. Again, well, if Hillary has anything to say, it's kind of her show at coming to that shop for Arthur McDonald. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So staff are seeking a resolution, and I believe that this is my last agenda item this evening. Staff are seeking a resolution to apply for 2 grant programs, the Beautification and Streetscaping Program and the Provincial Capital Assistance Program. Both programs cover 50% of eligible project costs. The Beautification and Streetscaping Program supports landscaping, installing interpretive and entrance signs, enhancing lighting, and building public restrooms. The Provincial Capital Assistance Program covers high priority infrastructure projects, typically water, wastewater, stormwater, and solid waste management. While processing grants has a human resource impact, staff are recommending applying to offset the cost of projects for which funds have already been allocated, limiting the financial implications of this resolution. For the Beautification and Streetscaping Program, staff hope to apply for funding for the Resilient Roots Tree Planting Initiative, for which $40,000 was allocated in the 2023-2024 capital budget. For the Provincial Capital Assistance Program, staff hope to apply for funding for the Dares Lake Spillway Repair Project. Council approved $200,000 for this project in the 2022-2023 capital budget, which has been carried over to the current budget.
Thank you, Hillary. You answered all my questions because I was asking if there were typical ready projects on the go, and you do have them. So that's great. Do we have a mover and seconder for the motion? Moved by Councillor Ernst, seconded by Councillor Sanford. Any discussions on the motion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. And the last item of business is the Water System Assessment Report. And I suspect this is in your warehouse, Tyson.
Thank you, Your Worship. For the record, my name is Tyson Joyce. I'm the town engineer in Lunenburg. The recommendation from staff is that council approve adding $15,645 to the water utility capital budget for a water system assessment report, and that this expenditure be funded through the water depreciation reserve. So some background on this item. The town was issued with our water treatment approval to operate by Nova Scotia Environment in October of 2019. The approval lasts for a 10-year period, and within the approval, it specified that we would be required to submit a system assessment report in March 2024. NSC revised this approval, we'll call this version 2, early in May of 2022. And included in this revision was the requirement for the system assessment report to be submitted by April 1, 2023. Due to some apparent admin complications, the town did not receive this revised copy of the approval and was not aware of the accelerated timeline that NSC now required. The overall intent of the systems assessment is to verify that municipal public drinking water supplies meet environmental standards and the minimum requirements in the Nova Scotia treatment standards for municipal drinking water systems. It looks at all aspects of our water system, from the source to treatment practices and monitoring and testing through the system. Staff shall require the assistance of a consultant to compile the system assessment report to meet the NSC requirement. The system assessment report must be completed for the town to be in compliance with NSE and the revised water treatment approval to operate. Staff will work with NSE to manage the submission of the report. If approved, this item shall be funded as a withdrawal from the water depreciation reserve. There are adequate funds within the reserve to support this budget item. There is a motion for your consideration.
Thank you, Tyson. Any questions for Tyson? Anyone willing to move the draft motion? Council Sanford, Councillor Ernst, seconded. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. If there's no further business, I'll say we were adjourned. Thank you very much.